To Crown Square, this really is the heart of Edinburgh Castle. Now the first building on the square I want to tell you about is the newest one. It's the one directly in front of me, the Scottish National War Memorial. Built between 1923 and 1927. Originally it was a memorial to the Scotsmen that had died during the First World War. But after 1945 this was rededicated as a memory to the men that had died in both World Wars, and from 1945 right up until the present day. When you enter, you find yourself in front of the shrine. The natural stone of Castle Rock rises up through the floor of the memorial. It's actually the highest point here on the rock. On top of that is a marble block known as the Stone of Remembrance, and on top of that is a chest. That chest contains the names of every single Scots man or woman who died during the First World War, nearly 150,000 people. Their names are replicated throughout the memorial in the books of remembrance. The hall is divided into alcoves, and each of those alcoves is dedicated to a different Scottish regiment. In them, you're going to find two books. And the books on the left of each alcove are the names of those who died during the First World War. And the books on the right, the names of those who died during the Second World War. But at the back of the Second World War books is another section. It contains the names of those that have died since 1945 in conflicts such as Korea, Malaya, Borneo, and of course the present conflicts in Afghanistan and the Gulf. The really sad thing is that names are still added to those books, and for that reason, because the memorial is still in use, we ask that you don't use cameras, video cameras or mobile phones in there. But do have a look at the books, do read some of those names. It really is a beautiful memorial. Behind me, on the other side of the square, is the Great Hall, or the Banqueting Hall of Edinburgh Castle, built in the early 1500s to celebrate the marriage of King James IV to Margaret Tudor. Now, Margaret Tudor was an English princess. She was Henry VIII's sister, so the wedding is often known as the marriage of the thistle and the rose. The thistle is the symbol for Scotland, the rose is the symbol for England. Just in case you don't believe me, there's a thistle and a rose on the plaque on the wall. When you go inside, the door's in the corner here, go in and look up. Much of what you're going to see inside is a Victorian reproduction, but the ceiling beams are original. It is known as a hammer beam ceiling, and it contains no nails, no screws, no metal of any kind. It is all held together with wooden pegs and under its own weight. And if you imagine it the other way up, it looks a little bit like the inside of the hull of a ship, because it was built by shipbuilders of the time. The wood used to build that ceiling was given as a gift from Sweden 500 years ago, but there is no evidence that it came as an IKEA flat pack. The last building, the building to my right. This is the Renaissance Palace of Edinburgh Castle, built in the 15th and 16th century as accommodation for the royal family of Scotland. For that reason, this building now houses the honours of the kingdom, Scotland's crown jewels, and the door to those is just round the corner where we came from the square. And the crown jewels consist of three items: the sceptre, a papal gift made in 1494, the sword of state, another gift from the Pope in 1507, and of course a crown, the crown of King James V, made here in Edinburgh, down on the Royal Mile in 1540. Together, they make up one of the oldest complete sets of crown jewels in Western Europe. Also within the case though, you're going to see a large sandstone block. Known as the Stone of Scone or the Stone of Destiny, it is the ancient coronation seat of the old kings of Scots, used here from around the 9th century until the 1290s. John Balliol was the last king to be crowned sitting upon that stone in Scotland. The reason for that was in 1296, when the English invade, they capture the stone as a trophy of war and they take it to Westminster Abbey in London. There, it is placed within a carved wooden chair and used as the coronation chair of the English kings and queens. Later on, the British kings and queens. The present Queen Elizabeth sat upon that stone at her coronation in 1953, before returning it to Scotland in 1996 on one condition, and that is that it is going to be used for all future coronations. Whoever the next monarch of Great Britain is, the Stone of Destiny will go back down to Westminster Abbey before being returned to this castle sometime after the coronation ceremony. Hopefully in less than 700 years, though, this time. And when you come out of the crown jewels, you come down a flight of stairs that brings you to this doorway here. Take a left turn, follow the corridor at the very end, you'll find yourself in Mary, Queen of Scots' bedchamber. Mary came here in 1566 while heavily pregnant. She had been staying in Holyrood Palace down at the bottom of the Royal Mile, but there she witnessed the murder of her secretary, David Rizzio. Fearing for her life and that of her unborn child, Mary came here. She stayed in the palace block, and in the corner of her bedchamber there is a tiny little room. It looks very insignificant. You might think it's just Mary's walk-in wardrobe, but it is perhaps one of the most important rooms in British history. There, in 1566, Mary gave birth to her one and only son James, and James is important. In the following year, he became King James VI of Scotland when Mary was forced to abdicate by nobles hungry for power. Then in 1603, the English Queen died, and she left no heir to her title. Thanks to the marriage of his great-grandparents, James was the nearest living male relative to the English Queen. So King James VI of Scotland became King James I of England. He was the first king to unite the two monarchies and the two kingdoms. And that was how in 1603 England officially became a part of Scotland. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming on the tour. You guys have been great. I hope you've all enjoyed it. I will tell you, of all the tours I've ever done, you've been by far the most recent. If you have any questions, please come and ask me. I'll stick around to answer them for you. If not, have a great day and enjoy your visit.
Thank you.